Alright, so I'm back with game 2 in the matchup between Zizi and Lurtzer. Again, this is in the first round of the loser's bracket in the Dragon's Eye tournament for Spellforce 3. For game 2, we're going to be in Ancient City. So let's get into it. Alright, so Zizi is going to be the teal Dark Elves. She's going to be going for the Guardian of Nor again. And Lurtzer will be the purple trolls this time. Humans last game, and he's going for the Plaguebringer. So, I'm going to take a quick peek at the resource builds. 4 wood, 1 hunt, 1 stone. I'm assuming 1 more hunt and 1 more stone to come.
Understood.
Zizi with 3 wood, 1 hunt. So standard opener from both players. Guardian Nor and the Tarantula going forward. Plaguebringer going forward on the first sector. Do have a Smasher training. Alright, quick look at the skill build. So, Plague Disease, Feast on Disease, and Plague Bolt for Lurtzer. Debilitating Blow, Soul Explosion, 2 Brute Force, and 1 Deep Waters for Zizi. Lurtzer's going to level up here in a second, so we'll see what he gets. And actually, before I do that, let's check. Okay, so Zizi's getting the harass off on the Plaguebringer with her Spectre, so keeping active. Looks like Lurtzer lost. Oh no, excuse me. Lurtzer does not have a scout in the beginning. I forgot the trolls don't start with any kind of scout. Lurtzer's got a Smasher on the way to support the Plaguebringer. And now that Smasher can kind of chase off the Spectre if it continues to harass. But Zizi's going to bring the Spectre back and just get some regeneration done. Let's see if she goes to the tower. Not yet. Not that it's a big thing, but I'll be curious to see where she sends that Spectre to. I was wondering if she might go camp it at the Medusa sector or something like that. But I guess the health regenerates decently fast. So both players are going straight to the side. Neither one of them are jumping to this sector across the wall from their capital. And let's see if Zizi ends up going towards Lurtzer's side of the map. Looks like she'll grab this on the way. Probably upgrading some of her buildings right now. Alright, level 3 for both heroes. So, interesting. So, Zizi must have assumed that Lurtzer grabbed this territory because she had the opportunity to take this. And so this is, alright, so I talked a little bit about scouting in the last map. Scouting will help you confirm assumptions on where your opponent has gone. So what I mean by that is Zizi had the Spectre over this way. Now she saw that Lurtzer was going to the left. Now again, when you're in the game and you're playing, it's a lot less easy to think about this in the moment. But when you see the Plaguebringer going left, you know that he has not had the time to clear this camp, go up here, and come back. So to me, the ideal read would be, okay, Lurtzer went straight to the left. He did not take this camp. So if I'm grabbing this one, I can go straight down and take his zombie camp over here, which is what Lurtzer has done on the opposite side. And now you can see, and excuse me for missing this, but I did not catch, how much experience either of these heroes grabbed over here. I'm assuming there was some kind of competition for getting the zombie kills. Let me figure that out by looking. So Lurtzer is at 116 experience. Zizi's at 456, so I'm not sure if that whole camp was taken. I don't know the experience values of these units, but regardless, there was an opportunity to potentially steal a whole camp from Lurtzer. But, it might have just ended up being an even trade. Now the difference is what you just saw right there. So, and excuse me for not having this spectator tab up for resources. The difference between these two heroes in that early ability to harass creep camps is soul transformation. The Plaguebringer does not have any mobility spells. So if you're the Guardian of Nor, you have an increased ability to move around on the map and take resources that would have otherwise been for your opponent. Good harassment by Zizi. She did end up taking this sector, so... But she's going to have to go back eventually. Smashers are... You know... Smashers deal a lot of damage early in the game. Control units are way different than, you know, a squad of tarantulas or a couple infantrymen early on, excuse me. And, you know, Lurtzer is going to get this back, but this is just time that he has to waste killing that flag and picking this up, while Zizi can get on the move and find somewhere to harass. So she'll probably try to pick off some workers. We'll see where she goes. I'll say the most obvious place to go is the Stonebreakers. And when I say obvious, I don't mean the most effective, but the first place that I think of that's like easily harassable is the Stonebreakers. So there you go. Debilitating blow and one auto attack kills that worker, and that's 40 seconds that Lurtzer will have to wait for that that worker to come back. Good amount of smashers out. So you can see from the population, Lurtzer is starting to train units, been training units. Zizi not yet. It seems like she was relying on her early tarantula just to support her with creeping, and has not trained since then. So I had cast another matchup, another troll versus dark elf matchup. I forget who it was. I want to say it was Rangos versus Veju. I can't remember who it was, but there was a troll player who was building a lot of smashers early, and a dark elf player who was not building too many troops, and most of them that they were training was tarantulas. And I wonder if Zizi would be better off getting just even if one Hall of Pain early on. So she's gone tier 2, so she's going for a fast tier 2. But on a map like this where there's going to be pretty clear competition on the Medusa camps, and neither player went to each other's side, but there's usually going to be pretty clear competition that's going to happen on the Medusa camps, and having a couple of troops up to help you fight for that is so important. So for Lurtzer, what I would say is, as soon as you see that the only unit out on the field fighting for Zizi is the Guardian of Nor, and she doesn't have infiltrators, and she doesn't have big clump of tarantulas up to compete, go to her side of the map and fight for her Medusas before you come for yours. Because with a couple smashers early on, even if she has 6 tarantulas, you have the advantage in a straight up fight. So this is a hard habit to build, especially for newer players, but it can be very beneficial to get used to at least trying to be aggressive and get onto the other player's side of the map and pressure them and force them into earning their side of the map. And if you get over here and Zizi's got 10 infiltrators and you're on 3 or 4 smashers or whatever you're on, then just go back and take yours. But scouting plays a role in there. You could send one smasher up here while the other 4 are attacking here, and just kind of get a read on things. But Zizi is starting to get troops out. Now Lurtzer is on 49 population. Zizi's only on 12, so Again, in my opinion, ideally, I would start poking around with this squad of units. It looks like Lurtzer wants to do some upgrading, but you know, if you have units that aren't upgrading yet, or you don't have the resources to upgrade them, maybe poke around and see if you can harass an iron mine. You know, on Ancient City, this and this iron mine are not too difficult to get pressure on safely because they're far enough away from the sector center that you can get, you know, on the far side and destroy those. But these kind of decisions and strategies will come with time and come with experience. And I will say, whenever I'm casting one of these games and I'm mentioning something that a player could have done better, or I'm giving my opinion on what kind of move I would make, again, I'm coming from the opinion of a spectator, and so it's very easy for me to say what I would have done. If I was playing in a tournament game like this, I guarantee there would be a lot of decisions that I'd be making that I could look back on and say, wow, that was, you know, not the right move or whatever. So if you see me doing one of these replays, I don't want you to get the sense that I'm criticizing playstyle or anything like that. This is just me giving my opinion on how the game is going and the kind of decisions and strategies that people are using, and kind of my own input from a bird's eye view of maybe how you can improve or whatever the case. It's very rare that anyone's going to be able to play a whole game through where they're always making the right decisions, always, you know, producing the right units to counter what their opponents got, and so on and so forth. Oh man, and actually these spike flingers are, yeah, I was just about to say, these spike flingers are going to be a problem if they target those infiltrator lines. The splash damage on those, oh wow, and the Guardian of Nor went down. I didn't even notice how fast that health was going down. But so these units for the trolls, I really like against tier 1 on the Dark Elves. Spike Flingers have splash damage. Skull Crushers have splash damage. Tier 1 Dark Elf units clump easily. In fact, I would say that tier 1 units for all races other than trolls clump up a lot. So if you can get splash damage against someone who's going heavy tier 1, that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind as an option. I have not checked items recently, so let me do that. So Lurtzer is on the level 3 weapon. Zizi just picked up the shield. Let's see, she'll jump out of trade here in a little bit.
Farewell.
I'm assuming that she's on, you get level 3 shield. Fire orbs, picked up some health potions. So, alright, let me get back to free spectating. And excuse me, I also forgot to check skill builds. So Lurtzer on 2 deep waters, 2 brute force, 2 tiring attack, plague bolt, plague disease, and feast on disease. And Zizi's on 2 brute force, 2 block momentum, deep waters, and then 1 of each of these. So soul transformation, soul explosion, and debilitating blow. Excuse me, get back to, I think someone's got a bell rung there, but I'm not going to browse around and try to find out where that's at. Alright, so both players building up their armies, maybe not quite sure what to do, where to go. I believe I just saw, if my memory is correct, I believe that Lurtzer was just poking up into this area, but Zizi kind of scared him off, so he's recalculating, trying to figure out where to go next. Lurtzer wins this engagement. Again, look at those units clumping up. And I mentioned it, oh my gosh, yeah. I mentioned this in the last cast. When you click and drag, when you're doing a move command and you click and drag, not only does that help for getting your units in the engagement, avoiding enemy spells, but also when you have an enemy who has just infantry or plain units, not just a hero, but plain units that do smash damage, like Skull Crushers and Spike Flingers, when you have a wider formation, you you make those attack types less efficient as well. I'm not sure if there's ever really a time that using a long formation is going to be a big problem unless you go all the way, you know, across the screen, and you've got guys that are taking time to converge before they can get into combat. But you know, the rare exceptions might be, let's say you're using Wolfguard Commander and you want to have more units within aura range, or you're using some kind of skill on a hero that needs nearby allies to benefit from it. You know, those are situations where that can make a difference. But definitely think about that, because your unit movement and formation can make a huge difference in the way that a battle plays out. And yeah, I mean, you just see these spike flangers, their splash damage is pretty gnarly. I mean, they're dealing damage, but wow, I didn't realize Zizi's already tier 3. I'm not sure if she felt safe enough that none of her bases were under severe threat that she could tech up behind that on just like a small amount of army. You know, even with the Guardian of Nor going down, she's tier 3, so she's behind on military, but she's got decent macro. She's got 2 border fortresses, and is this 4 fortified outposts? Yeah, so 2 border fortresses and 4 fortified outposts, while Lurtzer is on 1, 2, 3, 4 Eyes of the Tribe. These 2 are unupgraded, and I touched on this a little bit as far as a difference maker that I noticed at the end of the game and the last game was that Zizi seems to have a little bit better macro play than Lurtzer, which kind of scaled into the late game. So right now, Lurtzer has the lead as far as population and can be taking engagements. I'm not sure why he's hanging back. Maybe he's not sure what's the right move right now. But with this army, you can start applying pressure. Maybe you want some more melee units and less spike flingers as far as being able to pressure sector centers. But if I'm Lurtzer and I'm looking back at this replay, I'm saying, wow, I have twice as much population cap. I could have been pressuring right now. Instead of having my army over here. So it's harder to know that because you don't have vision on the whole map while you're in game, and so you never know if your opponent's got more army hiding somewhere, or if they're, you know, bolstered up behind one of the sectors that you might be applying pressure to. But for Lurtzer, I would be focusing on in the future, you know, expanding and balancing my economy while I've got my troops out on the field. You can see pretty wood heavy, floating a lot of wood here. Let's see how this battle plays out. It's not a lot of tarantulas dying here, but these striders are going to start making a difference. And so now you can see the difference between what I was talking about with tier 1 versus later tiers. A lot of the later tier units are going to have a bigger unit model. When you have units with a big unit model, splash damage is not as important because it's going to hit less units because there's less unit models within a small, within an area of effect of the attack to make a difference. So striders, when they're fighting trolls, these spike flingers and the skull crushers are way less effective against a unit like a strider than they are against a bunch of tarantulas and infiltrators. You know, you might hit 4 units with a single spike flinger round against a tier 1 army, where you might only hit 1 strider when the Dark Elves are in tier 3. But again, what I was saying about you know, macro and balancing economy is like this. Let's say 100 of this wood was dispersed across these other resources, and this is what I'm talking about when I mentioned resource balance. Lurtzer has the ability to rebalance this economy maybe by what do you call it, deconstructing some of his wood choppers, and then using that stone that he'll get from deconstructing the wood choppers to build other stuff. Or maybe expending a bunch of it to get hunting cabins up, whatever the case. And again, like, you could look at this like, oh, this is a mistake or whatever, but this is just a learning experience, and a player like Lurtzer can look at this and say, wow, if I had this other 100 resources, or however many split amongst his other stuff, I could have been even further ahead in military count, and I could have applied more pressure. So, look on the bright side. Anytime you feel like there's something you could be doing better, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you have more potential than what you're playing in a certain game. And in a game like this, there's always room for improvement. So, doing pretty well overall. Zizi's an experienced player. She's played her fair share of Spellforce, so to be at a point, in games back to back where you're, pretty even as far as population count, taking some good trades throughout the game. But you can see Zizi, every single territory is max level. All these are border fortresses. And Lurtzer is on to tier 2, but a lot of Eyes of the Tribe, not any Sharp Eyes of the Tribe yet. Sharp Eye of the Tribe is going to be the top level expansion base. So Lurtzer reporting in to defend. I think at this point, when Zizi's got a bunch of Striders, this army's not going to cut it anymore. You probably need to have some Hex units out. And again, part of that is just getting to the next tier, getting that tech. And I mentioned the idea of deconstructing a bunch of wood choppers. Oh man, just got a hero pick there, so the Plaguebringer goes down. And yeah, looks like Zizi's going to take the game there. We're down to 113 versus 9 population. But, okay, resource balancing. So, when you get to tier 2, you want to be getting these, I think they're called Shrines of Mugwa. Excuse me, which give you these offerings. And these are going to allow you to get your top tier units, your hex units. You take a bunch of woodcutters because you have so much wood available, and you deconstruct them. That gives you a bunch of stone. With the leftover wood that you have and the increased stone that you have from the deconstruction, you can put down a whole bunch of Shrines of Mugwa so that you now have the ability to get more offerings, and then you can convert a bunch of these smashers into hex units. So again, as you get experience with the game, you'll start to understand resource balancing. You'll start to notice when you're floating resources and when you can deconstruct certain buildings and relocate those workers to other places. So that you can, kind of reprioritize based on the needs of the game. You can see Zizi, a more experienced player, because she's been playing the game longer than Lurtzer, so that's fair. She's got pretty well balanced economy. We're 22 minutes into the game, and she's got a pretty even amount of all of her resources. Echo works a little bit different, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But either way, great game to both players. Good series to both players. I appreciate you two letting me watch your games and check out your replays. I'm going to go to the post-game score and take a look at these. And pretty similar stats to other games. You can see, even with a small amount of units produced, decent amount of kills, a lot of this was kills on tarantulas and infiltrators with that splash damage. So if you like playing the trolls, just recognize that when you have units that do splash damage, that's your go-to against an opponent who's heavy in tier 1. Once they get beyond that, and once they start getting out units that have a bigger models, you might want to start switching to units that do single target damage or something like that. That's a very general rule of thumb, but it can be very helpful to understand and to apply on your average game. Similar sectors conquer. So I mean, pretty even game until the end there. All right, let me go back and take a look at all these. And again, look at that. I mean, Lurtzer had the army advantage for almost the whole game. Just learning how to apply that pressure. Pretty similar resources gathered. A little bit of a difference, but given the difference in tech and macro, that's actually less than I thought it was going to be. Floating some resources, you got some to spend there. But again, that will come with time. The ability to balance army movement with construction, with resource balancing, and whatever else. And there you go. That's where that kind of final swing happened, where Zizi started to get the momentum. All right, so good games. That's going to be 2-0 in that series for Zizi. But well played to Zizi and Lurtzer. And again, thank you for letting me replay your games, or cast your replays, I should say. And yeah, best wishes to both players as you go forward in the tournament. I figure we're getting close to the end here, but good to see you both play.